All right. Call to order the Whatcom Transportation Authority Board of Directors meeting Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Vicki, can we start with roll call, please?
Yes. Donovan.
Here.
Hawkinson.
Here.
Forsythe.
Here.
First is absent. Blackwell.
Here.
Maryland.
Here.
Purdue. Absent. Is absent. Williams.
Here.
Darwin.
Present.
Thank you.
Right.
For the record, Michael Lilliquist texted, said he's stuck in traffic, but he'll be here. So he's just running.
All right, thank you. Item C, citizen communication. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone online that would like to unmute and address the board? Seeing none online, seeing none in person. All right. Item D, executive session. What time is it? All right. The board will now meet in executive session for an update on potential litigation as allowed by RCW 42.30.110. 1I. The board will be in executive session for approximately 10 minutes until 8:13 a.m. The board is not expected to take further action on this matter following the executive session. All right, if you're not supposed to be in here, get out.
You are.
The board chair has announced a 2-minute extension to the executive session. We'll be back in session at 8:16.
All right, moving on to item E, board action. E1, consideration of setting a public hearing for June 2025 service changes. Who's starting this?
Mary.
Right,
Right,
me or Tim is online.
Tim's over.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Good morning, board members. Just this action is to request a public hearing for November 7th. Just information wise, the hearing would be the 7th, and we would be seeking board action, a decision on November 21st. This item, which Mary will present, has a history. We began service changes a couple of years ago, decided that we weren't ready to implement those changes. We brought them back earlier this year, and we've spent the bulk of the year working on this particular round of changes, which as a way of background really emerges from WTA 2040, our long-range transit plan, which, as you might recall, focuses on equity, efficiency, and the environment. And so out of that, we also established evaluation guidelines that the board approved earlier this year. And so many of these changes come out of those efforts. So Mary's going to present the results of what we've come up with for this year. Mary.
All right, great. Thank you. So those of you in the room have the service change booklet. Those of you online will get that emailed out to you right after the meeting is over. So you can, in the room, follow along if you want, or just watch the presentation. So I will try to go quickly because I know there's a lot on the agenda. So as Tim mentioned, this is the culmination of a lot of work, interdepartmental work, and I'm really excited to share it with you today and the community over the next month. As I was thinking about transit planning, it struck me that it's kind of like putting together a puzzle, but we don't know what the picture looks like. So you have all these pieces and you're like, well, I think I kind of know what the end result is going to be, but you don't really know. And you know some of the pieces are going to fit together and some of them don't. But the end result is always amazing, especially when you see that service on the street. Okay, so these are the goals that guided us throughout the service change process. So, you know, I'll just read it in case anybody isn't able to, excuse me, read the screen. Increase frequency and span of service on routes that serve priority populations and key destinations. increasing transit access in areas with new housing developments, and that's especially multifamily and low income, maintaining service on existing corridors and to key destinations as much as practical, and increase operational efficiency by realigning underperforming routes. All right, so this is just a little key for you as we go through the next slides for what those little symbols mean. So the green plus is the number of the number of bus trips is increasing. The red minus is that the number of bus trips is decreasing, and the purple little squiggly thing is that where the bus starts, ends, or travels through town is changing. And in the next slides, I have routes kind of grouped together by geographic area. So the first one that we're going to look at is service to the hospital. This one of the most requested things that I've heard since I've started working here just about 7 years ago is service to the hospital on Sundays. So that was one thing that we started with. And then we really looked at Route 4 because Route 4 is one of our underperforming routes. And what we're proposing with this is we're basically taking Route 4 and we're splitting it into two. So we have Route 9 and Route 18. So Route 9 would start at Bellingham Station, travel along James Street to Sunset, turn around at the hospital, and come back. And that would increase frequency from Bellingham Station to St. Joe's from hourly to every 30 minutes. And then the Route 18 does the same exact routing that the 4 does right now from Cordata Station to the hospital and back. And again, add Sunday service. And I should also say, I'll cover this in just a minute, but there are some service reductions associated with this where we would not be serving Levin Lane. And again, I'll get into that in just a couple of slides.
And what's the importance of Levin Lane? Where is that?
Oh, that's has front door service to the Willows retirement home. And again, there's a whole slide dedicated to that. But yes, that's it. Cover that in just a second. Okay, and then we also have service, or I should say, like one of the second requests that we get, main request we get is service to the airport on Sundays as well. And so this proposal also adds Sunday service to the airport, and it introduces a new Route 10 or a new old Route 10 if you've been around a while. So this has service from Bellingham Station out Holly past the Old Town Urban Village, which recently reduced or eliminated, I'm not sure exactly, parking minimums. The Lighthouse Mission is relocating, and then Bellingham Technical College. So we'll have 30-minute service from Bellingham Station along that corridor on weekdays. Another really exciting one is the Route 50 lamination. So this would be increasing the service from about every 90 minutes to hourly service 7 days a week. This also coincides with a routing realignment. Currently, the Route 50 leaves from Bellingham Station and travels along DuPont and Northwest up to Bakerview and then heads out to the lamination. We're proposing to start it at the Cordata Station and head out to the airport. The Northwest Avenue, so it's the dashed orange line on the screen there, is served by the Route 232. So there's already very frequent service on that route. We did, the planning department did a onboard survey of the Route 50 a few years ago and posed this question of, hey, if we went to Cordata Station instead of Bellingham Station, how would that affect you? And about 50% said, love it. The other 50% said, no, thank you. So it was not a clear cut and dry one. However, we feel like this is a better option operationally, and it allows us to increase the number of trips quite substantially.
If you were trying to go from downtown to take the Route 50, would you just go to the Cordata Station and transfer there?
You could, or you could transfer on route kind of right around that Northwest and Bakerview intersection. In fact, the city has on their pedestrian plan to add one of the Hawk crossings at Palisades, which would be a great point to transfer from.
It's a big gnarly road, though.
I know, exactly. That's why we need a Hawk. But anyway, so yes, there are. Oh, it's the What was that?
High activity crosswalk.
Yeah, so it's the ones like that have the red blinking lights that you would see on Alabama, so that cars will stop for people crossing. Well,
There are two different versions of enhanced crosswalks.
yes. Okay. Well, well, whichever one it is, we're excited for it. Okay. So then we also have service to here, King Mountain, Iron Gate neighborhood and King Mountain neighborhood that we're proposing some changes. So we are, this was an idea that was born on the bus, just saying riding the bus is great for everyone in the room, transit planners especially. So with all of the new housing that's going in out in the King Mountain area, including there is single family, but also some new multifamily, including I believe some low-income multifamily housing that's going to be going in. Crescent Way is being built right now. That's not an actual road yet, but it's getting there. So we're proposing to basically revert the Route 48 service hours back to pre-June 2024, and use those service hours to then add that to the Route 45 so that we can serve the King Mountain neighborhood 6 days a week. Excuse me. However, we don't want to completely eliminate the service between Meridian Street and James Street on East Bakerview. So we're basically just saying, let's just go back to what it was, which is just a few trips per day. It's a lower level of service. However, that area is a fairly close walk to the Route 331 down at Winco Meridian Village area, or up to Kellogg Street with sidewalks. And we'll get into that reduction more in just a minute too. Okay, so the Route 46 and 47 are brand new route that's been in existence for like 2 weeks now. What we're proposing for this is that the routing would stay the same as it is today, but the service, the number of trips would increase. So right now we have really just kind of a basic level of service, and we would be proposing to fill that midday gap that we have currently and operate later in the evening. Okay, and then the Route 75, this one is kind of a bummer. So,
We go back to that.
oh yes.
So with regard to the harbor and the waterfront, I think one of the issues with like filling them with cold storage wasn't that they didn't run late enough, but they didn't start early enough.
Yeah.
What's the thinking on that? Because I see 7 o'clock, 6:25, which is kind of early, but maybe not early enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When planning looked into the start time of Bellingham cold storage, one of the start times was like 5:55. It was earlier than we would even have service to get people from their homes to the station to transfer. So I think it's something that we could look into to see if it's a possibility to go a little bit earlier, but it isn't just that trip from Bellingham Station. It's can people get to that Route 47.
So first shift may just be out of reach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've reached out, and as Mary said, we've talked to BCS leadership and are talking to them, trying to figure out ways to support them. But the first shift is problematic.
But yeah, thank you for that question. Okay, so the Route 75. So this is the final route that I'm going to be talking about, and yeah, it is kind of a bummer. So we discovered that our new electric and new hybrid buses have they have a larger turning radius than our current hybrids and current diesels, which means that we are unable to perform the U-turn at Birch Bay Village. What this route currently does is as it's traveling through Birch Bay, it goes out to Birch Bay Village, does a U-turn, and comes back. Unfortunately, we are unable to do that with our 8 new e-buses and 11 new hybrids that are coming online in the next few months. And what that means is that 23 of our buses, or a third of our entire fleet, will be unable to perform this U-turn. So this has a ripple effect that's just unworkable for us to be able to say, well, we'll just put diesel buses on all 11 of those trips. So what we're proposing is that we would keep the total number of Route 75 trips the same. However, only go out to Birch Bay Village up to 4 times per day. And we're doing a lot of data analysis to figure out, with ridership wise, what are the trips that have the highest ridership at that stop, as well as talking with the operators who drive that route. And then of course today is kicking off the public outreach process to find out from the community as well where which trips they would prioritize. So to summarize, there's 11 trips total right now today of the Route 75A and B, and we are proposing that we would eliminate up to 8 of those trips, but and keep
To
3.
Birch Bay.
Yes, just to Birch Bay. The rest of the 75 is staying the same. It's just that
And we get about how many?
yeah.
4 riders a day?
about
2 riders
2.
a day?
yeah.
So just put
Yeah.
that in context.
Michael.
Who owns the roundabout and would they be interested in changing it?
There is not a roundabout. It's just a road
Okay,
that we do.
who owns
I
it?
don't know. Dan might be able to speak more
It's
better
a-
about like.
It's a private homeowners association.
Yeah.
We have an agreement with them to help with the pavements out there because it's a heavier area,
Okay.
but we would have to we'd have to widen that to make it work.
That would be something they could afford to do.
They couldn't afford to do it, and they would look to us to do it because they'd be doing it for us, and we have approximately 2 riders out there.
How
So
far is it from Birch Bay Village to the next stop?
it's a fairly decent walk. It with no sidewalk and little children. Yeah. So
And so I will say what we're doing here is we have to have some sort of solution short term. So we're doing this, but we're also studying longer term solutions like can you use a smaller vehicle that would have the
Yeah.
radius
Yeah.
turn, but those take a little bit longer to figure out how that would work with interlining, acquiring, those kinds of things. But so we need a short term solution. And then planning and fleet are still working very hard on how to find a longer term solution, most likely a smaller vehicle.
yes, so this also has an impact on paratransit. Thank you, Maureen. So if we remove fixed routes, then we don't have the paratransit corridor. And I don't know, Shelley, if you want to explain what that is.
Yeah, so first, the paratransit corridor is required in where we have a fixed route at the times the fixed route runs. So we would be reducing our paratransit corridor. We've never done a timed corridor before where we only have the fixed routes out there. So now you get a corridor, now you don't. And we do have some fairly active riders out there in Birch Bay Village. I think there's 16 individual riders and they ride, I think we've had 600 rides from that area since we started. Would not be my suggestion to do this, but I understand the limitations.
Well,
of
the
fixed route bus.
alternative is that we can grandfather in fixed route and keep that while we're trying to figure out what we do. Because if we were to then use a smaller vehicle and go back to serving that, then that would come back into, and does it make sense? So we're analyzing all those second and third order effects.
So there is no problem with us extending paratransit service beyond where we're required to serve it.
We would just grandfather it because we're already providing it now. We would just say this change won't, we'll just continue to do that.
Have an asterisk next to it.
I would suggest that if we do that we specifically state in our documentation that we are keeping it for X number of months while we investigate a solution that can keep it from having other locations go, oh, wait a minute, you're doing that. So yeah, put that caveat onto all the documentation.
Marilyn?
Few questions. One is, I support considering continuing the paratransit. I would caution WTA staff as we go out and continue to talk about that, that we don't use the word grandfather. I know the city of Bellingham in our equity style guide right now is eliminating and looking for that word in any of our policies. There's a long history about what that word means, and we're endeavoring to eliminate it in public documents here at the city. I did want to just ask, in this situation, has WTA ever explored kind of those last mile options for riders, like an e-bike or an electric scooter or anything like that, that they would be able to access? A different expansion of the van pool, I guess, a little bit, but for individual last mile connections. I was just wondering if this has ever come up in previous conversations.
So yes, kind of, more so with the city of Bellingham, when in March 2020, when the city put out a proposal for a micro mobility project, and then that was quickly rescinded, of course, because of the pandemic. We haven't looked at it so much in the outlying areas. We did have the microtransit feasibility study, which was just finalized a couple of weeks ago, and that may be a better solution for this type of rural area, because there's little to no sidewalks and bike lanes in these areas, and it's dark county roads. So it might, even myself, who's like a very avid bicyclist, may not even feel comfortable riding on some of those roads. But it looks like Tim might want to say something too to respond.
Yeah, if I can add, there's interest in the Service Review Committee, which is the committee that assists the planning department in identifying solutions. Interest in a localized circulator that would kind of, in effect, do what you're talking about, Maryland, that would provide those internal trips within this particular area, and then feed into sort of an express service. I think the main issue there is just the cost, right? There's a significant cost factor with operating a very, very low density, low ridership area. Is that where we want to make our investment? But that's certainly an idea that could be explored further.
Yeah, I mean, obviously cost is a factor here. So thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I was wondering on the paratransit, is there still, if I recall correctly, 1 day per week that we do paratransit beyond the normal limits? Is that still available? Or was it available in the past?
It's zone service, but I don't know that we have that in that location yet.
Okay, because I was just wondering if those people could be served by that service as well. All right, thank you.
We'll have to look,
We'll have to
look
look at
into
that,
that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Todd?
It's hard for me to see the map on the screen here, but what's the service area, the shaded areas there?
Basically from the C shop over to the,
No, I think you mean the pink area.
oh, I see.
Oh yeah, the pink areas, that is our flex area. So that's where the fixed route bus is able to flex off of the route and go pick people up who have previously booked what we call a flex trip.
Oh, on a fixed route bus.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there how many other routes do we have something like that?
Two other, the 71X and the 72.
So
Oh, am I-
So if I could interject here on the flex areas, that was implemented 2 years ago by the board. If you might recall, the staff recommended eliminating the flex areas, but there was concern about disaffecting people in some areas that were using the flex. I would say, though, that overall, this route has significant on-time performance issues. We do think that affects the ridership. It's not solely due to those flex areas, but that is a contributing factor. There's other things, congestion, the length of the route, other factors that are impacting this particular route. We haven't fully gotten our heads around addressing that issue. None of the changes here would address that particular issue, but just so you know that that's something we're going to continue to work on in the future. Mary, did you want to talk about eliminating the Nature's Path flex area as part of this?
Yeah, I do want to point out,
Yep.
just from a time perspective.
Okay.
Because this will come back for public hearing and everything
Yes,
too.
yeah, I will mention that real quick, and then I have 2 slides after this, I believe. So yeah, so the teeny tiny flex area that you see in the upper kind of third of the map there is Nature's Path, and we are proposing that we would just add that area to the regular routing. You can kind of barely see it. down there. Yeah, so that serves, there's a whole bunch of different kind of food production companies out in that area. Okay, I am going to move on for the sake of time. And then this is a very important thing, I think, especially for the board to see, is that this, one of the implications that we're proposing would be some service reduction. So I mentioned the Levin Lane, which serves the Willows Retirement Home. And then this would also remove service from the Cornwall Park neighborhood, and that's the Sunset Drive area and Cornwall Avenue. We don't do this lightly. I want all of you to rest assured that this is done with a lot of thought, and the stops that are on Levin Lane are all within about a 5-minute walk on sidewalks to the next nearest stop, and there is very low ridership. The Willows Retirement Home, so for example, we drive past their front door 28 times per day and have fewer than 2 boardings per day. So the stops that are closer to Ellis Street have a little bit higher ridership. However, they're also much closer to that next nearest stop. The stops in the Cornwall Park neighborhood also have very low ridership. The stops that are on Sunset Drive would be a little bit more than a 5-minute walk to get down to Cornwall and Alabama. However, that is the Route 331, which is that high frequency corridor. And so most people are willing to walk a little bit further to have higher frequency access. And I think that really the main takeaway from this is that removing these 2 areas enables us to double the service for everybody along that route. And we are not able to include either of those areas and keep this service increase in the way that we have it, I guess. It's all a package, I guess I should say. All of this is all tied together, intricately woven, and if you pull out one string, the entire thing falls apart.
I just want to point out, so is the 5-minute walk, is that for an able-bodied person?
Yes.
Okay, and so the Willows, tell you the people that rode my bus that went to the Willows would probably be a 10 or 15-minute walk. Okay. So I just want to just add that into that it's, sure, it's a 5-minute walk for most people, but
Would those
we're
people
serving a
qualify for
different community.
paratransit?
Some of them do.
Doesn't the Willows have their own bus to take groups? I've seen a Willow Transport at shopping mall, hospital.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
So those from a policy level, we've gone over a lot of tactical stuff, but the policy level, it's how do we do trade-offs? We have limited resources. How do we get the best bang for our buck? And there are trade-offs that come with those things, and it's very difficult, but that's what we're trying to balance, is where do we get our best return on investment?
Yeah, thank you. All right, and then just one last minor service decrease is that area highlighted on East Bakerview Road, where there would be fewer trips between Meridian Street and James Street than exists today. However, again, this is that balancing act of being able to provide service to a neighborhood that does not have it at all right now. Just FYI, we're going to be doing a bunch of outreach events starting with Seafest this Saturday and Sunday. We'll also be providing some extra service on the Route 47, so you can ride the bus and come visit us at the table for that. And then you can see the other events there. We will be, right after this meeting, I'll be launching our Engage WTA site that has all of this information and more. We'll be getting these little service change brochures out to the public. And
good. We're running out.
okay,
right?
yeah, so there we go.
Out
That's
of
it.
time. Yeah.
Questions?
Thank you.
Is there any motion needed to schedule a hearing?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I would make the motion to schedule a hearing as proposed.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of scheduling the public hearing for November 7th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Item E2, which was added yesterday, consideration of approval to contract with Express Electric for Midway Lot electrical improvements. Devin.
Hello, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. This is a request to authorize Les to enter into contract with Express Electric. This is to finish the Midway Lot electrification. It would complete what we have previously installed for conduits. We're installing 8 more electric bus chargers, backup diesel generators, upgrading the transformer. The engineer estimate was 1.646 million. We got great bid results. The result is 1.248. Really excited to move forward on this. Ask for approval.
This is a budgeted expense in the capital plan?
Yes. This has implications in 2024 and 2025, so you'll see the 2025 capital plan.
Is there FTA program money or who had Washington money in here?
There is FTA grant funding at 90% for the installation of the chargers. And we have a WashDoc grant for the purchase of the backup generators and the installation of the backup generators.
Sweet.
So it is grant funded 80 and 90%.
And the motion is to recommend or authorize the executive to enter into this contract. I so move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor of approval to contract with Express Electric, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you. E3, consideration of approval of September expenditures. September 1st to 15th. Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All those in favor of approving expenditures, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. All right. E4, consideration of authorization to dispose of surplus vehicles.
Yes. That's all right. It's just hard. I want to make sure. All right.
Good morning, Chairperson and members of the board. I'm here to present the memo for consideration of authorization to dispose of surplus vehicles. The recommendation on this one is that the board of directors declare 4 2012 Chevy Express vans, 2 2013 Chevy Express vans, 2 2013 Ford E350s, 2 2011 Ford E350s, and 1 2014 Dodge Grand Caravan for a total of 11 vehicles as surplus, and authorize the general manager to dispose of these vehicles in accordance with agency guidelines for the van grant program. The background information on this is that these vans were placed into service between May 6, 2011 and July 15, 2014. They have all since significantly surpassed the FTA minimum useful life of 4 years. The replacements of these vehicles were purchased with the order of 14 new rideshare vehicles from North Sound Dwayne Lane and Bud Clary Ford that the board approved on February 15, 2024. And the replacement vehicles were funded by a WashDOT public rideshare grant received by WTA. I do have a spreadsheet in the memo here that outlines the fiscal impact of each vehicle.
Michael.
Do we think all these vehicles are valuable enough to nonprofits if we find good nonprofits? I mean, are these lemons we shouldn't give away? Are they all really pretty good?
No, these are all vans that are currently still in revenue service in our van pool program, and they will be given a thorough preventative maintenance inspection and service before they are donated.
And John's recommended, I think there was 1 or 2 that he did recommend going to.
Yes, there are 2 vans that we have on site that are not included in this batch that we've deemed mechanically unacceptable for donation.
Well, I love this program. I would move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
I have a question. So if they're still in good condition, we're cycling them out just because we have a time frame of how long to use them, even if they're still usable?
The FTA sets up a minimum useful life benchmark for these type of vehicles as 4 years. Most of them have been in service for well over twice that long, if not 3 times that long so far. They are reaching 200,000 miles in some cases, and are starting to have some mechanical problems, but not anything significant. That doesn't mean they can't continue to be used. But since we have already received grant funding and purchased new replacement vehicles, the intent was to exchange and replace the van pool program vehicles with the new ones and make these available for donation.
I mean, so there's a minimum, but that's our policy as we go for the minimum? Because I'm looking like 72,000 miles, 84,000 miles, 88,000 miles, 92,000 miles for Ford F-50s. It's not a lot of miles. So but I mean, we're replacing them because we could afford to replace them, or replace them because we need to replace them, I guess is maybe more of an observation than a question.
I will say that's a good observation, particularly for our budget. As we look into next year, that is one of the, on the expense side of looking at things, is what is the right useful life that we have. In this case, we had grant funding to replace these. They recommended we replace them. And then with the van program and the need in the community for that, since we had grant funding to replace, we thought the cost benefit was such that it made sense to do that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, going forward is, I mean, should the policy be, we use the minimum, whatever standard is, or something in between minimum and maximum?
Yeah.
And maybe don't always have the grants, but.
Right, it's a great question.
Yeah, I would support that line of discussion in a future meeting. We're endeavoring to do that and extending the life of our fleet vehicles here at the city. So.
Yeah, we're having that discussion at the county.
Yes.
All right, if there's no further discussion, how about a motion?
I made one.
Did you?
I think I already made one.
Michael.
Okay, sorry.
Michael already made it. Second.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. All right, all those in favor? Perfect. Authorization to dispose of surplus vehicles, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, moving on. Item F, board reports, F1 2024 Community Van Grant Program Awards.
The winners are.
Malcolm.
Do you want me to kick it off, or do you got it?
Oh, I'll go ahead and kick it off. Just time check. I know we're running short on time, but Malcolm Duncan Graves is helping us with the van pool program on a temporary basis. So he's going to kick off a short presentation. So I think we can probably limit it to 5 minutes or less. So with that, I'll just hand it right over to Malcolm.
You have 2 minutes.
I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. Just provide some background on the program and the timeline and how we selected these candidates for award. The program was board approved in 2018, has been running since 2019. It essentially works to fill gaps in the overall WTA service, and it's acting as an investment in community benefit and outreach for the WTA. And overall, this is a low-cost service for the WTA and provides a large amount of benefit. This year, we got 34 applicants that met criteria, with 44 total applicants. For timeline, we started by emailing groups that had previously applied or showed interest on July 15th. We did a media campaign between the 25th and the 29th with a number of articles published. Applications closed on the 23rd of August, and between the 23rd and 29th of August, grading was completed of all applicants. And then a staff team met on the 29th and made final decisions on the applicants that we would recommend for award. In terms of scoring, we use previous scoring methods that had been used in past rounds, and it's out of 100 points. So we look at community benefit, which is worth 40 points, the total number of trips provided, which is estimated by all the organizations, and we give that 30 points. The coordination of service, looking at how their services are going to align with services provided by the WTA and other local agencies, which is worth 10 points. Their ability to fund and administer, looking at past use of vehicles and revenue streams, worth 10 points. And then finally, the clarity and quality of the applications, again, worth 10 points. Going over the applicants for award, I think you guys all should have this spreadsheet as part of the board packet. Our number one applicant in terms of score was the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Support Services Organization. They scored 84 points. We then had the Lummi Nation Housing Authority, 83 points. Road to Home, 82 points. Lifeline Connections, 80 points. Christian Hope Association, 76 points. Brilliant Planet, 76 points. Ferndale Community Service, 76. Wild Whatcom, 73. Habitat for Humanity, 72. Compass to Campus, 70. And Common Thread, 70. And choosing these applications or applicants, we tried to get both a breadth of service as well as locations where these services are being provided. You can see on the right side, they're from Bellingham, Lummi Nation, Blaine, and then countywide as well. Does anyone have any questions? Nope.
What's Brilliant Planet? I'm familiar with most of these groups, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, Brilliant Planet is, they provide after school connections to the outdoors, much like Wild Whatcom does. And it's in particular for low income individuals in Blaine. And they had a huge amount of community support. They had 4 letters of support from community organizations.
Does this need board action? I don't see a recommended action.
It does not. Yeah, the way the program had been set up was that board surpluses to the Van Grant program, and then staff does this and brings it back to the board for information. But as so many board members have potential reaches into things, it just made it, the board decided to do it that way.
This is
All right,
great.
any other questions? Yep. All right, thank you. F2, introduction of draft budget. Shonda, talk fast.
Yes, do you mind if
I do
Just
talk fast, but not that
Yeah, do you mind if I'll just kick it off and kind of set, with the slides all got sent out yesterday. The intent of what we were going to talk about today was kind of at a policy level discussion of what are we choosing to invest in and see. And so what you see in there is what we were hoping to invest in, use our resources to invest at the kind of the policy level to see. We're still finalizing the numbers on things because we're still waiting for like insurance to come in and benefits and all those to finalize those on the numbers. But what we're proposing here are things that we can afford and fund and finance. And we believe it's a fiscally responsible budget. As you'll see in the numbers, it funds keeping all our reserve funds fully funded. So that means our rainy day fund, our daily kind of operating fund, our capital fund, our bus fund, and that totals over $30 million of reserves in there, and then still carries over $7 million into the future years. So it's a responsible budget that still allows us to move forward with our future activities as well. And so anyway, you can see the things that are in there. When we come back, we'll have the numbers associated with them, so you can see that. So I respectfully request that you take a look at what we're investing in, and then let Shonda and I know if you have any issues or questions on what those are. Just in the interest of time, I apologize that I did poor agenda management today. So if that's okay, then I'm sorry. Shonda, anything you would like to add?
No, I think that covers. Well, yeah, you'll be able to see these concepts in the numbers that we'll present on the 17th of October.
And I guess the last thing I'll say is what we try to do is we look at this as the budget as a strategic implementation tool. So what are those strategies that we want to accomplish? What are the outcomes we want to generate from it? And then how do we resource those things to be successful? And so that's what the budget reflects. And so that's why it was a listing of what those things are, to see if those are in line with the board's desires.
And I'd encourage people to really look at that budget before the 17th and send questions ahead of time if possible. So we're not playing stump. Shonda.
And the budget numbers will likely not be in the packet when it comes out, but it will come out before the board meeting, so you'll have time. I'm going to shoot for the packet, but you'll have a few days to look at it ahead of time and see the marrying of this document and the actual numbers.
If I could say one other thing, I'm sorry, because you know I'm long-winded and I apologize, is really want to compliment the leadership team. In 22 and 23, we were trying to figure out some budget anomalies on why is it at the end of the year we always carry over a large amount of cash to the next year, and how do we do that? And what we did this year, and I appreciate the board approving a budget that tries to test that theory of why that was. And so what we had noticed was we, in no particular order, we had been very conservative on sales tax. So we probably picked the wrong year to try to realize what sales tax has historically been. So I apologize for that, but we tried on that. Our capital execution, thanks to Devin, who's really stepped up and executed on that capital program. So we're spending what we think we will. And then also, we were budgeting at 100% of employees at 100% of the year, which kind of threw things off because we don't have 100% of our employees fully funded throughout the whole year. And so there were things like that we looked at implemented in this budget that showed, okay, there are things we need to be working on. So we've got a responsible budget for this year, and next year we have a revenue working group to look at, are there ways to generate additional revenue for WTA? So thinking different ways. So like, are there leases that we can be doing to generate revenue, those kinds of things. And then also an expense working group to do the things like what Todd and Mayor Lund talked about on looking at what is useful life. How do we acquire vehicles? Do we do it in a different way? Do we have smaller vehicles? All those kinds of things to really put it through some intellectual rigor on those. So we're in a good position, and we have an opportunity to do that throughout next year. So I'm excited about where it'll be. Now I'll shut up.
That was everything I was going to say.
Excellent job. Any initial questions or comments? All right.
I don't know, I just have a quick comment.
Yeah,
just because, I mean, I won't lie. I mean, I look forward to Shauna's presentation. I looked through this and I was looking forward to hearing more about the specific items in here. And I kind of find it a little bit, just kind of a bummer that we didn't get to hear anything in here. And it's just basically read it. And then if you have questions, call us. And I don't know, it just kind of rings not a great tone with me. I guess I would have rather heard some more of the thoughts that went behind this, but anyway, just a comment.
And this is on for more in depth. We've got
I understand. But if you're setting it, then you should set it and not just be like, hey, 5 minutes, read it, and this is kind of over. That's all.
I apologize.
It's just a general.
I shouldn't have put the service stuff on here at the same time because that takes a lot. So I apologize that I've not met your expectation.
All right. F3, Transit Safety Officers Update. Jeff Benson. Nope.
We will, being that it's over time, we will add this to a different agenda.
All right. Other business announcements? We are adjourned.